Now, the rectangle represents all possible modes of perception. Pastor Russ often talks about other areas of perception. Mike Bennett at your conference last year talked about using DMT, mind-altering drugs, in order to open modes of perception into supernatural realities like shamans have done for thousands of years to make contact with the spirit world. But now Professor Bostrom thinks transhumanism could provide a more stable pathway, a more permanent pathway. We will merge ourselves with animals. And so he draws a circle in the rectangle, and he says this small circle in this giant rectangle represents the modes of perception that we humans have today. Those that were given to us by the big meanie God who won't let us see into these other areas of perception. So we have taste and seeing and sight and smelling and whatever. But then he draws a larger circle around that circle. It encompasses all that is man, but it extends further into these modes of perception, and this is called the animal kingdom. And he writes about how animals, they can navigate using sonar. They can see into areas of the light spectrum that we cannot see into. They seem to, migrate. What are they doing? Are they reading the vibrations of the earth or something when they move out of a particular area before an earthquake comes? They can hear at higher decibels. They can fly using sonar like bats. They can navigate undersea in the water. They can do all these things, and we want to be able to do that. That's why it's in the NSF report. We want to become the Nomo. We want to become alien hybrids that can float around under the sea. But before I get off my task, back to Nick Bostrom. And so he talks about all that. Then he draws a larger circle around that. This encompasses all that is man, all that is animal, but now we're talking about transhumans, something that is part animal, part human, and even part synthetic creations. And we will open new modes of perception that are beyond our visible constraints right now, or other sensory modalities that we may not as yet even understand. And then finally, of course, en route to becoming post-human, eventually we will be post-humans, something so radically different than what humans are today as to no longer even be considered to be a human, and we will have the wonders of all of these various modes of perception. Well, when reading his thesis some years ago, I could not help but think of Balaam riding down the road, kicking his donkey. What is up with this stupid animal? He won't get back on the road. Well, the donkey could see something he couldn't see. Pretty big angel standing in the road with a sword. You might not want to go running at him. And that's one illustration. There's been other research that's been done that leads us to believe that animals often see things or somehow are aware of what we would think of as the spirit world, the supernatural realm. Transhumanists like that. Maybe get in contact with some pretty cool entities there that are just beyond our range. Terence McKenna, who was the scientist who was the originator of time wave theory and novelty theory, and who experimented with DMT and other psychoactive mind-expanding drugs and made contact with the Greys and the ETs and all the rest of them, but then would have to come down off his high and come back to this reality, speculated that in the very near future, via human enhancement, we won't no longer need these psychoactive drugs because we'll alter our brains to put ourselves in contact. There is this an extraordinary interest. By the way, if you think I'm exaggerating, go to Arizona State University. Go to their website. You'll see a tab there called the Sophia Project. At Arizona State University, the Templeton Foundation has been paying for a long series of mostly pro-transhumanist lectures on transhumanism and religion and the future of democracy. Well, guess what? As a result of these conversations and the Nick Bostrom types talking about, kind of dancing around because they sure don't want to use language that then us Christians would come along and say, hang on, let me get you Russ Disdar's email real quick. They don't want to hear about it. But at Arizona State University, some of the lecture givers, the presenters there, and some of the students have been saying, but wait a minute. Professor Goru says that we won't just change ourselves biologically, we will literally rewrite our souls. We will change ourselves spiritually. And if there is something else there, regardless of what religion you are, These students are asking, do we really want to just, do we want this forbidden gate? Do we want this open? And so now Arizona State University, last year, 2009, launched a brand new project called the Sophia Project. Go there and click on it and amaze yourself. Because what they want to do is they want to confirm and make contact with the other side. This is Arizona State University. And they even list what they want to confirm communication and or make contact with. Aliens, angels, demons, the spirits of dead humans, Gaia, God, a universal mind, whatever it is, whatever's there, we want to figure out a way to get to it. Now, does that sound like a good idea? But there is a spiritual side. I'm going to go very quickly. There's also a prophetic side. And this too is shared by transhumanists. Not just old-time preachers like Tom Horn. And to prepare myself for writing Forbidden Gates, I finally made myself do something that I had not done. I went back and I read, and now I was familiar with Hugo de Garis's theories, and I'd actually done shows and documentary films where I talked about a series, but I never had actually sat down and read the book cover to cover. So in preparation for this, I went and I had my wife, the beautiful one herself back there, the Pied Piper of Ponydom. I had her, through Amazon, order me Hugo de Garis's book, The Artilect Wars, Cosmos versus Terrans. Well, if you want to see a transhumanist who is trying as hard as he can not to be an Old Testament prophet, get that book and read it. Because I'm telling you, he's a singularitarian. By the way, I would not call myself a singularitarian, but I believe in the coming singularity. I believe the Lord should tarry in the not too distant future, very near, probably closer than we can imagine. There's going to come a moment. Technological singularity is going to occur in one day in which an artificial mind is going to come online. We're going to create it. We're working hard to create it right now. We've got laboratories around the world and the brightest minds in the world trying to create a godlike synthetic intelligence. And Hugo de Garis was one of the leading artificial brain designers in the world all of his adult life. But when you read what he talks about how he goes to bed at night and he has these euphoric feelings, and he says he uses this kind of language, it is a religious experience to dream of this massively godlike intelligence that we are just we're on the cusp right now of creating. And it will be, according to both him, Kurzweil, and all the rest, trillions of times more smarter than our best minds on earth, and faster. Trillions of times. In fact, what they compare it to, us trying to communicate with this thing the day after it comes online would be like a rock trying to communicate with you. Simply no possible way. And they use the term singularity because if you know anything about physics, when you are approaching the event horizon in physics of a dark hole, a black hole, as you approach the event horizon, you cross through to the singularity, even physics changes. Nothing we understand whatsoever about physical rules apply any longer. Technological singularity will be the same thing. In one day, a mind comes online, and by the next day, we are all standing at a standstill waiting to see what this super intelligence is going to demand of us. Well, what Hugo de Garis would go to bed at night having these euphoric dreams. You like how I jumped right back in that? He'd go to bed at night having these euphoric dreams about this God he's going to create. But then what he says is 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. He is jerked from sleep by a horrific nightmare in which he sees a sea of blood and chaos and all of humanity annihilated as a result of the creation of these artificial intelligences. And so he goes back and forth. He becomes schizophrenic. I'm a cosmos. I'm a Terran. I'm a cosmos. I'm a Terran. I want to be a cosmos. I think I'm a Terran. Finally, it comes down, I'm a cosmos, which is a transhuman, which believes that ultimately in the end, we will have the power to do it. We have to do it. We will do it. And the potential benefits outweigh the risks. And by the way, to give you a fast clue on his terminology, artilect is a word of his making. It means artificial intellect, instead of just simply saying an artificial brain like Kurzweil would say. Cosmos are those of the cosmos. These are the ones who are going to want to build. the artificial intelligence. Terrans, terra, of the earth, terra firma, that's people like us who say, wait a minute, really, is this a good idea? And what Hugo de Guerra says is that the conflict that will arise overnight, there will be a civil war, will ultimately rapidly spread into the Third World War, and before the end of the 21st century there will be billions of dead humanity. In fact, according to Hugo de Guerra, all life on earth will be annihilated as a result of what he yet says something is pushing him, something's behind him, something's pressing him, Russ, something's forcing him, something's whispering in his ear, something's got him by the neck saying, you have to create this, you have to open this gateway, you have to open this doorway, we have to come through.